All right, guys, thanks for joining me today. This is my 2022 GMC Yukon XL. I've had this for almost 20 months now. I've almost have 19,000 miles on it. So I want to give a follow-up review. I've done a few videos in the past with this. A few people have reached out and asked me, how's it going? What kind of feedback, what kind of review do I have after owning this for almost 2 years? So I want to get into that today. So this Yukon's a 2022. In 2021, they came out with the option. They redesigned the body style, and they now have an option where you can have the Duramax engine, a 3-liter, kind of a small Duramax, 6-cylinder turbo diesel in here. So this has the Duramax engine. That's really the only option on this vehicle. It has the Duramax, and then it has this color. This is called the Satin Steel. At least when I ordered it, it was called Satin Steel. I think they call it something different now. But this is the SLE trim. SLE is the base trim when it comes to GMC vehicles. It's a very base trim, and then it doesn't have a lot of options on it. Just the Duramax engine and this pink color satin steel. So I own this vehicle as well as I have a few Teslas as well. And I use the Teslas for like the day-to-day stuff. This we use on like road trips, you know, going on vacations, taking this on longer trips, because it's just an awesome vehicle for those kind of things. So today I want to talk about not only my experience over the last almost 2 years of owning this vehicle, but also just why this is such a great vehicle for families when you're traveling and road tripping. The SLE trim, which this is, comes with the standard 18-inch wheels. It has the standard black interior. This is an 8-seat vehicle, so it has the 2 buckets up front and then the 2 rows behind, so it can fit up to 8 people, and all of the cargo room. That's really the real benefit to this. In 2021, when GM redesigned their full-size SUV, they redesigned a new independent rear suspension in the rear. So not only with these 18-inch wheels, but the independent rear suspension, this thing handles great. It doesn't have the magnetic ride control. It just has standard springs and shocks for the suspension. I think this thing handles really good. If this had if I put on like a 22-inch rim or something, it's going to ride a little harsher. But having the 18-inch wheels, I think, is a great option on this. The ride is fantastic. That's one of the great things with this. It handles great. It drives very, very smooth. Super easy to drive. Just a real pleasure to drive on this, especially on long drives. Just really makes it easy. I'll show you the real benefit to this diesel engine, and that is the miles per gallon. We just drove almost 400. I don't know, maybe it was 450 miles or so. I'm going to scroll through my menu. I reset the trip meter on trip 2. Check this out here. 473 mile drive. Some of that was probably 25 miles was slow city driving. Average miles per hour, 60, about around 60 miles an hour. But the miles per gallon, 27.4, which is fantastic. That's the huge benefit to this vehicle, and that is the miles per gallon that you're getting. When I have a full tank, which I have about right now, look at the range here, 728 miles. I mean, this thing can go over 700 miles on a tank of fuel. Holds 28 gallons of diesel and 5 gallons of DEF, which is the diesel exhaust fluid. In 2022, they started doing the digital gauges. You'll see in some 2021s, they'll have the manual analog gauges here. So this digital gauge cluster, which looks really nice. This infotainment system is nice. There's push-button transmission where you select your gears right here, and then it has the climate control that can control the rear. But this does have a nice look to it. Has a nice, even though it's the basic trim, it really has a nice, kind of a nice premium-looking interior. Actually, a dealer-installed. It's called the Kurt Spectrum trailer brake controller. You can get this in the Max Tow package. The Max Tow package is available in this Yukon. It doesn't increase the towing capacity, but it does give you a bigger radiator and an integrated trailer brake controller. This is an aftermarket one, and it's like a GM accessory one. This works just as good. So this is the 4-wheel drive control. This does have the 4-wheel drive option. It does have an auto option. Normally I just keep it in 2 high, and then it does have a 4 high option. If you do get the maximum tow package, you can get the 2-speed transfer case where you can get a 4 low, but this just looks like a kind of like a hill descent or kind of a hill climbing type of a setting on this. When you go to tow haul mode, it does enable the exhaust brake, which makes it nice for slowing down and coming to a stop with a trailer on. All right, under the hood here, you can see here's the diesel engine. I've had 0 issues. I've had the oil changed, I believe, 4 times in 19,000 miles, and that's the only maintenance I've had. I've also changed the fuel filter once, and then added DEF, and I've changed out the air filter at about 15,000 miles. I think I want to point out on the SLE trim, this is maybe just one of the complaints I have, and that's just the nature of this trim, and it's, you just need to be aware of this if you're looking at this trim. So this has the bench seat. This is the second row right here. You've got the 3 seats across here. This, you cannot get the captain's chairs, which, you know, the 7-seat version. You can't get that in the SLE trim. And this is all power folding, or it's not power folding, it's basically manually folding. So for me to get this access to the back row, the 3rd row, what you do is you lift this up here. Okay, one time that folds down. Someone could climb over this really easily, or you can lift this up one more time and it just pops open like that. So that's pretty simple. I don't have kids in car seats anymore. So if you have, let's say you have kids in car seats and they can't buckle themselves or they can't lift up that lever, that's something where maybe you want to look at the SLT trim, the Denali trim, where you can get the, you know, the 2 captain's chairs so they can walk through the middle there. My kids, my youngest is like almost 8 years old, and all of my kids can pretty much operate this, which is pretty good. One other thing I'll show you here is when you flip this back up, the headrest stays down, but you can see how much further this is forward. And so if you want to have maximum legroom, you got to lift up this other lever here and push it back there. So that moves forward every time you fold it down. That's just what it is. It's not, there's no power fold option on this. It's all kind of manual. Not a huge deal, but just be aware that that's the case on the SLE trim. You know, you have the cloth, you know, material on the seats. You don't have the leather option, but you know, the cloth is held up pretty well. There's no complaints there. To give you an idea on legroom, so this seat here is just folded down. It's not moved forward, it's folded down, but you can see how much legroom there is right here for someone to sit. You can fit 3 adults here, 3 adults here, and you can fit 6 adults in these back 2 rows and be pretty comfortable. I mean, there's no, you're not lacking on legroom, and that really has made this a lot more spacious back here. Since they went to an independent rear suspension, they can lower the floor a little bit. They've made this a little bit longer, so the legroom is awesome in these, especially if you have, let's say, you have older kids, larger kids. Or just, you know, we have 4 kids. You know, we'll put two in the back, 2 in this row here, and they all have their own room, and it's been great. Okay, one other thing you want to be aware of also on the SLE trim, so that's this trim here, is you don't get a power lifting and any power actuated rear hatch. It's all manually operated. So that's another thing why you'd need like kids that can do this themselves. Is if you're hauling kids around and they're getting their stuff out of the back, they would need to be able to reach up here and close this, and similarly to open it. It's just by pushing right here. So that's probably my biggest complaint with this, is the vehicle this size and this expensive. You know, the base price for these for a 2023 or 2024 model is like, you know, $65,000, but you do get a ton of room. So if this had a power rear hatch, it would make it probably the ideal trim, because in order to step up to the SLT trim, you have to add at least $6,000 to $8,000 in price, and then there's a lot of other options available. So really, I'll probably add $10,000 to the cost of this vehicle if you add the SLT trim, which is the next trim up. But in the back here, you do get a power outlet. So there's a power outlet, and you've got a few hooks here. There's a little storage area underneath the floor. This is unique for 2021 and newer ones because it has a little bit lower floor with that independent rear suspension. So that back area and storage area is awesome on these. All right, inside the driver door here, there's a tag that tells about the towing specs, and I want to show this because that's actually right here. It's actually on the side here. If you can see here, the towing capacity, conventional towing, 7,700 pounds, and then it will do a tongue weight of 770 pounds. So this can tow a pretty decent sized trailer. I've towed my enclosed trailer several times. So guys, why is this the ideal family vehicle in my opinion? If you've got like 3 or more kids and you need a lot of cargo room, this is the ideal. I think this is better. We've had a couple of minivans in the past when our kids were younger, when they were in car seats, and that worked well because when you're getting kids in and out of a car seat, the minivans are nice because you get the doors open, you get easy access. Kids can get in sometimes easier. But when the kids are a little bit older and kids can buckle themselves, this is the ideal vehicle because this is getting about the same miles per gallon as I had a couple of Honda Odysseys. The same MPG as those vehicles were getting. This gets almost 28 miles a gallon on the highway. The same miles per gallon almost as most minivans, but it can tow 7,700 pounds. You have more cargo room, you've got more leg room, just an overall bigger, more comfortable vehicle. However, I would say the only downside to this is that this is a big vehicle. It's a big vehicle and it's more expensive than a minivan. I mean, this thing starts around $64,000 with like 0 options. I would definitely say I recommend getting that diesel engine in this. It's only about $1,000 additional cost to upgrade to the Duramax 3-liter diesel engine. It does great. Power's great. You know, it's got great torque. It doesn't have the growl of the V8, but you also get a lot better fuel mileage. So I think that's a huge advantage to this vehicle. It really makes it the ideal vehicle. Something you could daily drive, and it's not going to like be super expensive in fuel costs. It's not going to be any more expensive than a minivan. Now, diesel in a lot of areas is more expensive than regular gasoline, and so that's something to consider. And, you know, it fluctuates. It could be 50 cents. It could be $1 more per gallon. I think the longevity of this engine, I think, is going to be really good because GM warranties this engine for 100,000 miles. So guys, over the last 20 months that I've owned this vehicle, everything's been great on this thing. No issues, no problems, no concerns. It's just been dead reliable, just like you would expect it to be after 20,000 miles. I know that's not a ton of miles, but, you know, after 2 years, this has kind of gotten broke in. Everything's kind of working as it should, and I'm really impressed with this. I'm impressed with this engine. Would definitely get it again. Definitely would recommend it. Even though diesel is now more expensive than gas, it's still a great engine. It's still something to be considered. Doesn't have adaptive cruise. Even if you upgrade to the SLT trim, like I was talking about, that would give you the power liftgate in the back, you still don't get adaptive cruise. You got to get up to the Denali trim in order to get adaptive cruise control, which I think is a huge miss on GM's part. It's not that big of a deal. Like, I can still drive this regularly where, you know, I just take the cruise off every time I want to slow down or, you know, hit the brake, go around people. But, you know, it's traditional cruise control. Adaptive cruise would just make driving this a little bit easier, especially on the highway, these long freeway trips. But, you know, I'm not going all the way up to the Denali trim, which would be $20,000 more than this vehicle, at least $20,000 more than this vehicle, just to get adaptive cruise control. Anyways, guys, hopefully you found this useful or helpful, especially if you're looking for like a family vehicle that you can use on a daily basis that's going to be reliable, good power, towing, lots of room, and great miles per gallon. This really kind of has the best of all those requirements. So guys, thanks for watching the video. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.